Mr. Lane.
You know what the other issues we asked about in the poll, the residents thought were also first, second, and third priority?
I do. It's sitting on my desk.
Roughly,
Yeah,
I tried
it's,
to link in the last presentation from last.
downtown, implement something better downtown, public art, open burning, trash. I feel like there's a fifth one.
Right, I mean, so generally all things that we're also still working on, so.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
In the list of milestones that you had on there, the previous point, at what point do we decide go, no go? Like, if all the haulers come back and their prices aren't what we had hoped and will maybe cost residents more than we expected, at what point can we pull back and say this is not something that we want to pursue, even though we've had public meetings, we've passed resolutions?
At any point, actually, we could even get past milestone number 3, and you all or new city council, if it's after the election, at any point could withdraw that ordinance or resolution, and we could essentially reverse the work that we've done.
To Jason's point, so we could solicit bids for contracts, and then after opening them, all decide that none of them are worth exploring and call it off.
Yes.
Other questions from Ms. Gordon? Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm sorry, this isn't a question, so you're kind of off the table for now. But I did talk to some council members from other municipalities that have single hauler, and their reaction was kind of exactly how I'm feeling, which is on the fence a bit. It's great for residents when it works and when the system goes according to plan, but when it doesn't, it's bad. And I like the idea of that Prairie Village implemented, which is finding the provider, but they have also found their provider 28 grand in the last, 6 months, year, something like that. And I've heard similar stories of HOAs with waste management, with other haulers. And there are multiple haulers that have had fines. And, you know, when that happens, you have to wonder, like, where are people gonna put their trash? And what are we gonna do about our codes that say people have to hide their trash bins? What are we gonna, we have to think about those things in advance and how we prepare and mitigate for those situations.
What happens when...
Right, what happens when that...
I will say, I mentioned we did solicit information from the administrators, but I've had a number of conversations with public works directors too, because if the trash isn't picked up, like, something has to happen with it. Like, I don't wanna supplement the work of the provider, certainly something should be done there, but if the trash isn't picked up, I mean, somebody's gonna have to pick it up, and whether that be a public works department that already has a full-time job to do, so pulling them off street maintenance or any of the other jobs that they're doing, it would put a burden on our staff, certainly.
So, right, which would be great with the fining process, right, which is how you get their attention. But the other side of this is it's great for our infrastructure, it's better for our air quality, it's more convenient for the residents, as long as the bid process works and the rate process works in our favor. But there's also the advantage of having, our own mini version of capitalism when it comes to these things. So there are other cities out there and other council members out there, if you guys want to talk to them as well and get their feedback. It would be in HOAs and other cities and things like that that do this and have had a variety of experiences recently.
Go ahead, Mr. Silvers.
I have also been hearing a little bit about fines, but what I haven't heard about, and I don't know if you know, Caitlin, have they been paying their fines? Have the trash haulers been paying their fines?
I don't know the answer answer to that. I would assume they are, but I don't know that for sure.
Could I just jump in? So, you're referring to them as fines. I think what they really are is a measure in contracts that are called liquidated damages, where if they miss pickups, they automatically have to pay. It's not a fine where they get taken to municipal court. It's just, I mean, it's a much more expedited process than you might think of with that. I would also add, I've got, between you all, and I've got 4 other communities that represent. 2 of them have single hauler. Merriam does not. One of my other communities does not. The other community that I've got, and actually I have a community that is big enough that does all of their own pickup. They have their own sanitation department. You're gonna have a myriad of issues in whatever system you pick. You know, the issue with pickup most recently in the communities that I have with single hauler, and it was a rampant problem, not just with the single haulers, because the single haulers are also hauling for multiple haulers, is they couldn't find anyone with a CDL to go out and drive a truck, because the demand for people with CDLs was so high, and people were paying hiring bonuses. And if you can go drive for UPS versus driving a trash truck, and you get a hiring bonus, the decision's pretty easy. So that's been my recent experience with all of this. And I usually don't speak up and talk about this, but I kind of have a unique perspective in that I've dealt with all the systems and the legal issues surrounding basically every way you can crack this egg. And you know, you might be reading about it in the Johnson County Post and single hauler because there is a single hauler. But I guarantee if you've got 5 people who are picking up, there are people who aren't showing up of your private contractors every week or every month. It's the same issue, it's just not making the news because it's not single hauler. So.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Okay, I do have one question concerning what other cities might be doing in reference to HOAs that have their own trash. Are they included in as part of the overall city? Do they have to give up theirs or not, or can we write the contract either way we want?
The latter. So communities do it all different ways. You can exempt an HOA. You would develop that as part of the contract when you develop the plan, whether we want to include our HOAs or we do not want to include our HOAs, whether it could be an opt-in or an opt-out in reference to their individual contracts.
Gotcha. Can you show that?
Sorry. I saw something about Mark cooperative purchasing with GFL in Roland Park, Fairway, and Westwood. Can you speak to that, and if there are other haulers that are on that cooperative purchasing?
Yeah, so the Mid-America Regional Council essentially has a regional contract for solid waste services, and Fairway, Roland Park, and Westwood are all on that contract. GFL is the one that won that bid earlier this year, the last time they bid.
So I represent Westwood. They've had different providers at different times. They've had Deffenbaugh, which became Waste Management. I think they had Town and Country for a while. Now they've got GFL. It just goes out on a every so often cycle, and it's really just about none of those communities is really big enough to have enough buying power to get attention of major haulers by themselves. So by working cooperatively with the Mid-America Regional Council, they've been pretty successful. As you can see, the rate is pretty inexpensive compared to others. But I think that there might be room in that process through Mark. I don't know, Caitlin, if you looked at that or not.
Yeah, it would definitely be during the plan development phase. We would inquire with Mark about essentially jumping onto that contract, if that's even allowable. We're just not there yet.
Yeah, no, I understand completely. I worked with cooperative purchasing contracts in my day job, and they are usually a better way to go, and so I was really intrigued by that when I saw it. And that rate is a lot lower than what I pay now.
Go ahead, Ms. Ryder.
This is maybe more of a question for you. When like Westwood and stuff has switched companies, do they have the same issue with, like, the transitional issues and stuff? Do they have those all over again every time they switch?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I mean, I think on a lot of occasions, you know, that they have transitioned the, whatever, the pickup, the bins, thank you. As long as they work with the new providers, technology, and I think they're all pretty standard anymore. I don't really hear a lot of people being upset or a lot of discord about any of that. You know, part of what we do as part of this process is when you move to a single hauler, you all are required to adopt ordinance exactly how pickup and what can go in refuse filling to do with yard waste. And it used to be more flexible, but the county has, because they basically all, I think, they all dump at the county landfill now. And so the county, through their Department of Health and Environment, has adopted very specific regulations. Caitlin and I were just talking about this before. So everybody's providing the same service. It's just who can provide it most efficiently.
Follow up to that, I will say, some of the comments we got from, at least the larger communities that we inquired about is the biggest issue was the initial bin change out. With there being 5 providers, as city attorney mentioned, we would have to very much coordinate who, what, when, where, how, drop off, pick up, are we doing it, or is the provider doing it? It would have to be a really big coordination, not that it can't be done, but certainly.
Mr. Silvers.
I believe GFL is new to.
They used to be Town and Country, they just changed their name. Yeah.
So that would be something, because I was wondering if maybe you knew the reason their price was so low is they were trying to get the bid.
Not from what I understand. They're not the newest on the list that I provided to you.
Commissioner.
I have a question about bins. With the city, are there other cities that would there's cities that have like branded bins, like I'm thinking Lawrence. So is that something, so like if you were switching haulers, like it wouldn't necessarily matter because the city owns the bins, is that something that obviously would be talked about in the plan, but just thinking out?
Yes, certainly. Whether we own them or the provider owns them, are we the ones coordinating as the provider? Will the ones coordinating, do we want them to be branded? Do we not want them to be branded? All of that would be developed in the plan.
Thank you. I have a comment, is that okay?
Or did you-
In more